Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning in yet to another Optimal Health program. Thank you for watching, looking at all our videos. We're getting some wonderful response. We appreciate that. Thank you for contacting the office and certainly sending all the emails. We love hearing from you. The website, drcalapai.com, drcalapai.com, and the phone number, 516-794-0404. A lot of great things happening. I have a meeting this evening with a company that does a variety of things, including the remote patient monitoring, and they're also doing some inventing of devices, some that have cleared the FDA to be able to monitor your heart, brain scan, wearing a pair of glasses, really cool stuff. So we'll give you some updates on this as time passes, and we're able to see when they're usable, or we're able to put these into play with the remote patient monitoring, the home monitoring program, which we've been talking a ton about every day with every patient. So it's a brilliant thing to have your vitals checked and recorded, and with a simple device, just pressing a button, sending it to the doctor's computer, and now we can track things, and we can have alerts to see when your sugar's high or low, pressure's high or low. It's a wonderful idea. And now all the insurance companies are opting to get on board with it, which we're very happy about. So a few different things today we can talk about. There's a study talking about when your body starts to really change and age. So that's a good, I'm going to say it's a comprehensive conversation because I'm going to make comments beyond what the study shows. And we'll talk about the Mediterranean diet. Does that hold the key to longevity, and which diet is right for you? That's really only born out of doing testing to see what your body's going through. We'll talk about that as well. And are 7,000 steps a day enough to see health benefits, or should we be doing more? So, cool stuff today. Certainly, if you'd like to call, 1-888-420-9272. If you'd like to email, text, however you want to get in touch with Frankie, telepathically if you like. He's here.
I'm always here.
He's the man. He's in
listening.
control. He's got all these electronics working and moving, and cameras are moving all over the place. It's incredible. So here's a good study. This is from Medical World News, and it talks about where's the turning point where your body really starts to age more rapidly. So a variety of studies in the past have described that it doesn't happen at the same time throughout life. It doesn't happen a little bit every year. There are times when you have bigger changes and loss of function. Although there's a great deal to discover about the aging process, we have a lot of good information, under our belt. So this study looked at age-related protein changes in the body. And it seems that these protein changes occur in and around age 50. And we can do little side comments where we know that excess sugar damages proteins and fats in your body. So there is a good little tidbit to talk about. Glycation and the end products of glycation are the things that can damage your blood vessels, your nerves, your proteins, your fats, your mitochondria, all sorts of things. So that's an important discussion, which they didn't really comment on here, but that's okay. When we talk about the proteomic aging atlas, which is they're trying to describe, there are 20,000 proteins encoded by the genome, and they serve as the bedrock and structure for your cells, different tissues, membranes, hormones with fats and proteins. So there are a lot of different things that occur. Your immune response certainly built on proteins, and you have to think of the immune response. If it's broken down or weak, you're going to age and have more problems faster than if you have a great immune response, because infection will create a lot of damage in your body. So my comment would be, and this is going to sound super obvious to everybody, I'm sure, I hope, what happens in your 40s and 50s that makes your body change? Well, your hormones drop. Thyroid, DHEA, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, IGF-1, the active component of growth hormone, all of these things, insulin. So if those proteins and hormones are the things that are holding your body together, working well, they start to drop, you lose ground. neurotransmitters in your brain start to decrease. And all of these, by the way, increase because you're losing cells year to year. You're not making the cells you had when you were a kid. So if you're 15 years old and you're making trillions of cells a second, that doesn't stay for a long time. So as you lose cells, you're losing hormones and neurotransmitters. So that's the big picture behind the aging process. Now, I can tell you that in doing this for so many years and evaluating thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of patients, if we see that that person's aging faster, hair, skin, nails, they're tired, they've gained weight, the cholesterol's up, all these things that we see in everybody at some point, and we find, hey, your thyroid's low, your T3 level is low, and we correct your T3, you have some energy back. Your hair, skin, and nails may improve. You may be burning fat better with your exercise and a low-carb diet, by the way. If we then correct testosterone, then your muscle benefits come back and sexual drive comes back in men and women. If we correct DHEA, that decreases the stress and adrenal stress mechanism so that you can handle stress better. And that's also good for darkening your hair color, because when people start to go gray, you put them on DHEA, their hair starts to turn dark again. If you look at IGF-1, the benefits there are excellent sleep comes back, mood, memory, focus, energy, hair, skin, nails, fat burning, muscle strength and endurance, exercise capacity. So all these things that you had a few years back, if we start to look at this specifically and correct, you'll regain that. So you're gaining back the function that you'd lost. So although the article talks about roughly at 50, I know I make a lot of faces, but I use my hands a lot. I'm Italian, so that's the way it works. We can track all these things, bring them back to where they should be, and you'll do much, much better. So you're changing the age-related hormone decline, neurotransmitter decline, and you're changing that loss of function, and you're getting it back. Invariably, when we do this, and we do this on everybody who's within that age category, they say, wow, I feel 20 years younger. No one says I feel 4, 8, 10, 11 and a half years younger. Everybody shoots back to that 20-year age benefit because they're doing things that they can actually test and look at that they did 20 years ago. They're getting back to exercise. They're getting back to reading and mental tasking. They're doing all the things that they've done before. But it's only because you're changing the mechanism of decline. So tests will say, yeah, this is when it happens. They're not describing why it's happening. I could tell you about that all day long. If you have 10 or 20 years of heavy metal exposure, and metals are damaging your tissues as they do, they can damage every part of your body. They're linked with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, damage to everywhere, your eyes, your vision. And we look for those and we get them out of your system. You're taking away that damage. Metals also are 2 and 3 plus charge, and so are your minerals. So if your minerals are supposed to bind to a receptor and they can't get there because the metals did, those tissues are going to be damaged. They're going to change. There's a lot to be said about understanding how to get your body to work the way it did 10, 15, or 20 years ago. To go a step further, if we kick up the exercise and we fine-tune the diet, you get the carbs out and your body's burning the cholesterol and you feel great and your brain's working better. All of this adds, progressively together to create a much greater result. And in those individuals that need to do, or we talk about doing stem cell therapy, you're taking your cells from your body, putting them into play, whether it's your joint, your organs, intravenous goes to all your organs, a nebulizer will add some more to your lungs, another nasal approach can get some more to go to your brain. You're putting new cells in where you have damage. What has more anti-aging benefit than that? Nothing. But it's a program. We're looking at all the blood work, correcting all those things first, and certainly if we opt to do the stem, you can do that. But you want to know what you're up against. You don't bring an antique or a vintage car into a shop and say, yeah, just whatever, wash it, wax it. In the older cars where you could actually see what the engine looked like, now you look at a freaking car and, I don't know where anything is. It's all foreign to me.
By design.
Yeah. I was joking around with one of my buddies, and he still has an original Mustang convertible, an inline 6. You could see every inch of that engine. You open the hood, you could sit in there and change it. And we did. It's changed the spark plugs, the wiring you could change, the distributor, all of that stuff. Very simple and easy. Now, I couldn't tell you what we're looking at. So, when you look to fix the things that you can see and understand, it makes a world of difference. And a lot of times I make analogies to cars. In those cars, if the spark plugs are old and the gap is not right and you're not sending that spark, you won't have great electrical, spark to create that little explosion in the chambers.
Chad is liking the analogies.
If you haven't changed the oil and the engine's not running well because you're running on old, crappy oil, you're just not going to have a good function for that engine. So my other buddy, Tom, who recently retired, moved to Florida, I used to go to his shop every week for years because he would take older cars, gorgeous cars, like the old Rolls Royces that are 25 feet long, and, antique cars, take them down to the ground, restore them from the body up, and I'd watch everything that he did with the engines, everything he did with the body and the bodywork, all that stuff. It was fascinating to me. But in a similar way, we're looking at all the things that we can and fine-tuning your pictures so you get better and better and better results going forward. Now, that sort of segues us into the exercise comment. Are 7,000 steps a day enough to see health benefits?
We got quite a few questions. Okay. The chat's loving it. They're learning a lot.
Let's take the chat first. Let's be fair. I can go and talk
he's on a roll
for an hour. But
I love it. People are learning a lot. Cool. So first question I had was, what exactly happens to our blood vessels as we get older?
So blood vessels are supposed to be nice and stretchy. Here's a blood vessel for you. And this blood vessel has plaque in it. So to show people how plaque builds up in different spots, or where plaque will build up at the bifurcation of the two branches of the blood vessel to clog it. Blood vessels have smooth muscles. See the dark red? That's meant to describe smooth muscle constricting and relaxing around the blood vessels. So if you do exercise, your blood vessels are not going to cramp in and get tight. They open up to accept more blood to deliver to your whole body. So as you age, the lining of the blood vessel becomes damaged. Some of the intima, which are the cells on the lining, and you could kind of think of them as like a cobblestone street. You have your cells, and they're individual, but they're in a group. And in between the cells, you have these spaces. Those spaces can fill up and start evolving plaque, as you can see on that model. But the stretchiness of the blood vessel decreases, and that's why your blood pressure can tend to get higher as you get older if you're not doing the exercise. Now, I had a patient in the office the other day, Vincent, who is 79 next month, and he looks like he's 60. He works out every day in the gym. Not many people get to work out an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. Goes to the gym every day for 2 hours, works out. Amazing muscular shape, as well vascular and everything else. He's in terrific shape. So his body really looks and functions like a 20-year younger person. So he doesn't have that stiffness and the changes, the age-related changes, because he's worked on it. But blood vessels get stiff. They get clogged as you get older. So you want to prevent that, certainly, as much as you can. Some of that you prevent by lowering homocysteine with vitamins, because homocysteine can cause plaque. You want to have great levels of magnesium, potassium, even calcium. But the red blood cell level is the best place to test for magnesium and potassium, because the serum is only looking at enough to fill the serum. You want to have enough to be able to fill the red blood cells. So that's what happens with vascular age and change.
Do arteries always get stiffer with age, or can you prevent that with something like stem cell?
Well, arteries will typically, and veins will typically get older and bulge, and a lot of people have varicose veins. But the more activity you do, the exercise you do, take your vitamins, minerals, hormones, you'll keep your body in better shape. And certainly stem cells, you're putting brand new cells to where the damage is, so they're creating that repair. There's some great studies now in stem cell therapy decreasing atherosclerosis, because that's an inflammatory cascade. So if you can decrease the process that's causing the plaque and causing the damage, that's genius.
How does oh no, that one you had already answered. They asked that prior to you going through that. Can blood vessels change from aging can blood vessels changes from aging affect memories and brain health too?
Oh, of course. There's a common diagnosis called vascular dementia, where your brain is not getting enough oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones because of poor blood vessels. I'm reminded of this effect or idea every time we get an MRI on an older person's brain, because you'll see ischemia, decrease in blood flow because of changes in the vessels, so certain parts of the brain are not getting their great blood flow. In a perfect world, if we get people to do the exercise early on, then you may be able to prevent that. And if you're getting the nutrients on board, as opposed to a person who does no exercise, has no nutrients, no hormones, their brain's going to age faster. But if you put all these things on board, you should see benefit. And certainly with stem cells, you see great benefit with the brain. So,
Funny.
I don't want this thing to hit me in the face.
Floats, as we say. Funny enough, my father, during this when you're answering this last question, texted me, "Hey, can you send me Dr. Chris's office phone number? I want some stem cells." So
Cool.
there we go. He knows.
We'll set them up.
He knows what's up.
Yeah, it's funny how your family knows my great friends in Oyster Bay, and they know my great friends out in Cutchogue. So it's a very small world.
Crazy. Us Italians.
Yep. They're all somewhere hanging around, looking for the best food, looking for good deals on things.
All right.
It's funny, too, because
No, you're good.
in my phone, I have Frankie Podcast. I have Frankie Suits. I had a guy that was in Jersey that would come and measure you and do suits and things. Then I had Frankie Cameras, who would do cameras and all the other stuff in the house and in the office. So there's everybody that I have in my phone has got like a name,
An occupation.
and almost like a mob name. Frankie Suits, Frankie Cameras, Frankie Joy Bag of Donuts. I mean, there's always a funny name for our friends.
My cousins called me Frankie Breads because I had a bread problem when I was younger.
All right, that works.
I've come a long way. All right.
As long as it's not Frankie Gabagool.
There we go.
I hate when people say it like that. It was almost annoying to watch The Sopranos. It's Capicola.
Capicola. Yeah. Go to Italy. See what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it normal for everyone's hormones to drop as they get older, or does it vary?
It'll vary somewhat. So you'll see some women who start to go into menopause in their late 40s. Yet other women will keep their period going until their 60s. So there's no exact day, week, month, year, but it's roughly within a period of time. But that's why with my patients, we like to track them to see when this is going to happen. So it's great to track the blood work, and if the estrogen progesterone are dropping down, for example, you can see that on a blood test, but you'll also see the FSH and LH, follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, go up. That means your brain is saying, hey, I want more hormone, but your ovaries can't make it. But it's curious because your brain wants more hormone. So when we talk about hormone replacement, if it weren't necessary after a certain point, why would the brain be asking so much for those hormones? Because they help your cells. And for a lot of women, the first thing we'll do if their estrogen progesterone is dropping and the FSH and LH are going up, we'll give them DHEA. That's a vitamin. Because DHEA can help to balance estrogen progesterone. You see it come up a little bit, and the FSH, LH come down. The DHEA might also, in women, give them a little bit more testosterone, which they need because it's great for your bones. But for men to take DHEA, you're not going to get your big testosterone numbers. So, but yep, hormone decline occurs in a variety of ways.
All right. Is menopause the only major hormone shift for women, or are there any other changes?
Great question. So I was talking about this to somebody the other day in the elevator, and I remember the conversation. They were just talking about menopause. I say, everything decreases in and around that time. Thyroid, very common. DHEA, absolutely. Sometimes thyroid declines before menopause. Sometimes DHEA declines before menopause, depending upon a person's stressors. IGF-1 declines. Neurotransmitters decline. So everything declines at that time for men and for women. So the whole anti-aging idea is that we look to see where all of your hormones are and start to fix them and get them back to where they were 10 or 15 years ago. So yes, all of these things decline.
Can postmenopausal women benefit from hormone therapy, or is that risky?
No, they can benefit from it. Over many years, the idea is that, well, if a woman goes into menopause and she's taking Premarin, which is one type of estrogen replacement, that may increase your risk for breast issues or breast cancer. And a lot of that has been gone back and forth over in many studies. So we believe that may not be 100% accurate, just by how they looked at the numbers, the statistics. If you look at individuals that have a little bit of the DHEA, you correct that, and you correct testosterone for women, all of a sudden you start to see their bones become stronger. Sexual drive improves, etc. Functionality improves. So I think to have a little bit of the hormones there makes sense. You don't have to have what you had when you were a kid, a teenager, or in your most fertile years. But I think to have a little bit of those hormones to prevent the degeneration can make sense. Of course, you wouldn't necessarily do that if a person has a history of breast cancer, or the mother or the sister has. You want to be as safe as you can, but you still want to make sure the vitamins are there to create strength in the bones.
Someone said the doctor is spitting facts today. Love it.
I have all this stuff stuck in my head over so many years of doing this, 39 years. So sooner or later, this little tidbits come out.
I think we're up to date for questions thus far. I will allow you to continue.
Yes.
The backlog.
So we're talking about 7,000 steps a day. Is that enough? Well, what does enough really mean? What do you want to change? If you're doing 2,000 steps a day, you'll get some benefit. 4,000, some more. 7,000, great. 10,000, a lot. So I like the idea that people get the Fitbits and all these little devices, and they look and see, I have to do more walking. I think that's great. The more you do, the better. I wouldn't stop at a certain number. I would just do as much as you can and then track it. Of course, this study talks about doing 7,000 steps a day decreases the risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, dementia, cancer, depression, and all-cause mortality. A little bit less so if it's 4,000 steps a day, and much less if it's 2,000 steps a day. The Lancet Public Health Journal was talking about all these benefits, and that's where the study comes from. So this study was from 2014 to 2025, 35 cohorts from PubMed and EBSCO-SINAHEL, which is abbreviation for something else, I don't know. More than 16,000 adult patients. Decreased cancer risk, decreased heart disease, better cognitive outcomes, less falling over and hurting themselves, better mental health outcomes, better physical function, decreasing type 2 diabetes. When you add on an article I spoke about last time about 150 minutes of doing exercise, that's a great amount of time to do something because it just continues the sugar burning, fat burning, delivery of oxygen, vitamins, and minerals, and hormones to your body. So they're saying that you're decreasing all-cause mortality, death from all things, by 47%, decreasing cardiovascular disease by 25%, dementia by 38%, depression 22%, and falls and injuries by 28%. So once again, and not to be too repetitive, but I guess I always am, with that activity, if you've got great vitamin levels that we create for you with now this new vitamin pack, you're delivering vitamins because of the exercise. You're sending tons of oxygen because of the exercise. You're getting your hormones to do their job because of the exercise. So you put all this together and you get your best result. Now, this study doesn't include what happens if your vitamin levels are at great range. They were saying that vitamin D, if your levels get, between 80 to 100, you're decreasing your risk of cancer and all sorts of disorders by big numbers. So let's take this exercise study, put it together with the vitamin correction study, and really see what these numbers decrease by. That's a better way to look at it. I may have to do that.
Write it down.
Yep, I have to remember myself to get on the computer tonight. Mediterranean diet, we talk about that, increasing longevity. fresh whole vegetables, legumes, good oily fish. They're talking about in 2025 alone, Mediterranean diet, better brain health, lower risk of cancer, lower blood pressure, lower risk of chronic disease, improvements in gut function. So now I'll make my repeated comment again. What's the name of the diet that you should follow? There's no name of a diet. There are people selling books without knowing anything about you telling you what to do, which on one hand will probably help a good number of people. But to get your best results, the diet should be created based upon your blood test. If you're allergic to certain foods, got to get them out of your diet. If you're low in potassium, magnesium, you can get more of that from squash and your vegetables, and you can certainly take vitamins, which you should, because you can't get everything you need from your vitamins, all your daily requirements, and I go way beyond the RDA for what you really need. So the diet has to be made upon your blood test, correcting vitamins, minerals, hormones, eating the best foods, organic foods, getting the junk food out, keeping the carbs down. So that has to be created based upon your blood test. That's by far the best way to do it.
Got a comment here. You told me about 5 months ago to do at least 30 minutes of brisk walking a day. I swear my memory is sharper. I'm remembering names and little details I used to forget.
Right.
Why does walking make such a difference in my brain power?
Because you're enhancing, you're fine-tuning, you're creating a boost in your metabolic function, and you're delivering oxygen. You know, let's talk about oxygen intake into your lungs when you're doing exercise. So you're breathing in a lot more oxygen. Oxygen is 21% of what we breathe in air. And the more activity you're doing, you're breathing more of that in. As oxygen gets into your red blood cell, hopefully you have good levels of magnesium and potassium and iron, because iron will grab the oxygen and hold it in your red blood cell until it's delivered to the rest of your body. So doing that and allowing that process to flood your cells will enhance the cellular function. If we also look at NAD, nicotine adenine dinucleotide, which is critically important for taking that oxygen and through a chemical pathway turning it into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that's your energy molecule. You're making more energy from the exercise, from nutrients, from NAD to create better cellular function. These are facts. So that's why we talk about all of this: diet, exercise, NAD, correcting your vitamins, because that's what creates the result. And we see it all the time. I can prove it all day long.
I believe this question is regarding the Mediterranean diet you mentioned. Mm-hmm. It says, is it the olive oil that's doing most of the brain boosting, or is it a combination?
It's a combination. All the different nutrients are important. Olive oil is great. Some people love the fatty fish for the benefits from the fatty fish oil and the salmon and such. You get a lot of nutrients from the legumes and vegetables. So it's a combination of everything. People should look you can get online, I'm sure, and compare what eating junk food will do for your body and what you're really getting from junk food, which is like nothing, and what you get from Mediterranean diet. It's a world of difference. You'd never want to go back to junk food again.
Someone said it's got to be the wine. That's what I'm telling myself.
Well. The OPCs, the proanthocyanidins, and wine are great for you. They're great free radical, scavengers. So, and look at the people who have followed that diet for thousands of years, Mediterraneans, and even in Egypt and all over the Middle East. These people didn't have junk food 1,000 years ago, 100 years ago. So they were eating really great vegetables, great sources of nutrition, and did really well with that. The Western diet that we seem to have here is linked with more disease than anything else that's ever existed.
Someone wants to know if you've ever seen the Blue Zone. Blue Zone's a show on Netflix, I believe.
I haven't seen that yet.
I've seen it, Guy. I know what they're talking about. They're basically these other places like in Italy where people live, usually over 100.
Oh, sure.
Right.
There are reasons for that. Interesting, too, that there are parts of Italy where people have very high cholesterol and no plaque and no heart disease. So there's a lot to be said for looking at these populations of people that live that long and looking to see why they do that. But again, remember, they do more exercise, more walking. I remember being in Italy at a beautiful place at a hotel, and you had to walk up and down like a huge amount of stairs to get to anywhere else to do anything. And within that town, same sort of thing. You walk into the town. I'm looking around these little old ladies. They had really big calves. The legs were strong, but they would walk up and down. They'd go to the market, get fresh food every day, make it. One square where we had walked into, they had a table. It was like a table after table of food, and you'd pay whatever amount, and you could just keep going back to eating the food on that table. It was amazing. But it was all things grown in local gardens. And, the women who had these little baskets on their head and walking around, it was incredible. That's why they're so healthy, because they're physically super active, and they're not questioning, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this or that. They just do it. It's in their DNA. They go, they do, they walk, they work. It's amazing. But that's why they're so strong. There's an interesting story. A friend of mine, Robert Davi, the actor, great actor, was in Goonies, James Bond movie, a lot of different things. He's a terrific, terrific human being. I love him. So we're sitting one day, and we're talking, and we had dinner, and we're joking around. He said, well, I went back to the town my mom came from in Italy. I think it was called Nusco. And they wanted to give him the key to the town. It's a very small town. So he gets up, does a little speech, speaks in Italian, and he raises his glass, and he goes, Cent'anni, which means to 100 years. Nobody said anything. And the mayor looks over at him, and he pulled him aside. He said, she's 98, she's 99.
Wow.
He'll be 100 next week. So all the people that lived in that town lived really long lives. So then the mayor said, you can't say Cent'anni, which means 100 years. You have to say senza fine, without end. So he went back and he said, I'm sorry. He goes, senza fine. Everybody went crazy. So the better toast is senza fine, without end, as opposed to 100 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's telling,
Good
huh?
story.
Mi dispiace.
Yep.
Oh, that's wild. People are questioning the meat intake, wondering if we eat too much meat here.
So over many years, we've been told a lot of things. Oh, eggs, horrible, bad, cholesterol, blah, blah, blah. Not true. So the question is, who do you want to listen to? There are people that have been eating red meat and organic red meat and organic chicken and turkey and lamb and organic eggs and such that do extremely well. I've got a pretty good 39-year perspective on that because I've seen people who keep the carbs down, don't have the junk food, but eat the healthy sources of food, and they do extremely well. And now you have the carnivore diet that's come along, and I've seen a few dozen people that are doing it that feel great. They've lost weight. They're out of the danger zone with their high blood sugars and such. Their gut function appears to be doing well. So I'm not saying that's something you do for a long time, but if you do it short time and you're getting out of the danger zone, that may be a good option. They said the Atkins diet was dangerous. They vilified him. Finally, he was vindicated because people in the Atkins diet burned through their weight, burned the cholesterol, triglycerides, all the bad sugars. So you have to be careful who you listen to because there are certain groups that make you think this is what you have to do, and they may be completely wrong. And that you could extrapolate out to many things that you're told.
Right. Funny enough, you're reminding me, when I was a kid, my parents would they'd get a house for a couple weeks on Fire Island, and we'd bring our dogs. I had boxers, and my boxer at the time, I believe, was like 10 years old, and we were walking into town, and a guy comes up. He goes, "Oh, boxers! I love boxers. How old is she?" 10. He's like, "Oh, she's getting up there. I have boxers my whole life. Really, coming to the end, like, so glum." I'm like,
That's
all right,
horrible.
guy. And he's just like, my boxer, I fed him completely a vegetarian diet my whole life, for its whole life, and it actually lived till 12. And it's like, that's like a really high number for a boxer. He's like, so that's got to be the secret. And I'm like, okay. And I'll never forget, because I was a kid and I was pissed. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And it was always in my back of my head. And that same dog I was walking, that was 10, lived till 14, which is like a record for boxers.
There you go.
And there was plenty of meat in her diet. So
Yeah, so people have these ideas that are fostered by some groups or agencies, and they want you to do what they want you to do, and there's no change and no room for discussion, which I think is wrong. You know, humans and animals were meant to have a variety of different things in their diet. They're not meant to have tons of sugar and carb, that's for sure. Many years ago, I went to an allergy conference in Colorado, and a doctor at the conference was talking about how to do allergy testing and food allergy. He said, ever since grains were introduced into the diet, we haven't been worth a damn since. And he was joking, but, you have to think about that. Some people eat way more carbohydrate than they need to eat. And now the grains are GMO, they irritate the gut, people have stomach problems, bloating, indigestion. A lot of issues have come because of poor diet. Look at what RFK Jr. is doing. Look at the school lunch plans that are there. I remember that a former president's wife, a first lady, was changing all the school plans. But the kids refused to eat it because it was horrible. It tasted horrible. And who knows whether it was good or not. I don't think it was. But, you've got to get healthy food into kids, and then they'll eat healthy their whole life.
Sorry, you hear me? Yeah. Clicked on mute. Why were we told to eat 6 to 11 servings of bread and pasta a day when I was a kid? Wasn't that basically
That's
setting
insanity.
us up to die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insanity, the whole food pyramid. We could be a little bit different on the way that we think about this. Who benefits if you're eating 6 to 11 servings of grain and pasta and cereal and all that junk? Not the person. Maybe the manufacturer of the food. And do they control the media narrative? Everyone knows that answer. And look historically at what we were told to do. And people ate tons of, carbs. And that creates big problems. We know that today. We see it. And when people keep the carbs out, they feel great. Bloating goes away. Headaches go away. You're losing weight, burning cholesterol, triglycerides, blah, blah, blah. If people like conspiracy theories...
Oh, we do on this show, don't we?
Maybe there's a conspiracy mechanism where people were told what to eat. It caused more problems, needed more medical attention, needed more medication, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how far off would that be? And we can clearly see once you change and get rid of the excess amount, I'm not saying you could never have pasta or never have carb. You should have the more pure 00 pasta from Italy if you want to have things that are non-GMO and have better source. But in doing that and having all that carb, people have had horrendous health. Everywhere else in the world, nobody eats as much carb with junk food as they do here. So it's a fact. It's true. Get rid of some of the excess and your body will do very well. Or do low-carb strict for a couple of weeks or a month, get your results, and then on Sunday have a little cheat day. You probably feel horrible, but it just shows you how bad those things are making you feel, but then go back and modify it a little bit. But that's what we see working all the time.
Someone's making a comment about when they were in school, there was the Got Milk campaign. Mm-hmm. Like, why do we need so much milk?
Well, there are some people who say we're the only creature that drinks another animal's milk for its food or nutrition. I'm sure there's some benefit to milk, but a lot of people are allergic to it and will switch to goat milk, soy milk. Some people are allergic to soy. Almond milk, cashew milk yogurt. There's so many more options today, which for those people are significantly healthier. A lot of sugar in milk, too.
Someone wants to know what the deal is with ancient grains versus our grains.
Ancient grains typically don't have the GMO. That's the biggest difference. And I know thousands and thousands of patients. I speak to people about this every day that say, I can't have bread. I can't go get pizza anymore. It kills my stomach. I'm like, well, because of GMO. I said, do you travel? Yeah. You go to Europe, South America? Yeah. Can you have the bread, the pasta? Yeah. Because it's pure grain. It's not adulterated. It's not manipulated. So that's the biggest change. Again, some people can do well with that and do well with the ancient grains. Yet other people, they just shouldn't have that much carb. Get your body to burn the fat better.
These comments. People are just going off in their childhoods. Why did the pyramid make it seem like a lunch of 2 PB&J sandwiches, a bag of chips, and a Capri Sun was perfectly balanced?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, that's what was forced upon us by people who, honestly, now we know, didn't know what they were talking about. You know, look at the colorings and the dyes in the drinks that, you know, RFK is getting out and banning. You know, he's a genius. He's 1,000,000,000% right. You know, look at all that. It's just, there's nothing in there that's healthy. I don't mind people that want to have nut butters or macadamia nut or cashew nut butter, or almond butter, even organic peanut butter. But to have the regular peanut butter and jelly on bread, it's giving you tons of sugar and fat. So let's think about this from a fat burning standpoint. If you have a lot of carb, which the bread and the jelly would be a lot of carb, it's hard to reach the fat to burn it. If you take the carbs out, you burn the fat more accurately. If you have the carbs and you add a lot of fat, because peanut butter is 17 grams of fat per tablespoon, you're just adding fat that you're not going to burn.
That's insane.
So it's not necessarily a good idea. And the sugar from the drinks is even worse. There are a lot of studies in many areas that describe all of this. So I remember when I went to medical school, first day of medical school, and I was like, oh my God, what's this going to be like? It's exciting, it's scary, it's all this and that. My mom, who's always made a ton of amazing homemade food, she would pack me a bag, because I was still living at home at the time until I was able to get out and get to an apartment. You know those bags you get when you buy a lot of food at the supermarket? You know, a big brown paper bag. You know, people have a little brown bag. They have a sandwich. They have some great... Mom made me a full, big brown bag worth of food, you know, with the special spicy mustard and this and that. I mean, it was just a huge meal because, you know, when you have to study, you get really hungry. I would study at home at night and take the whole dining room table and put my books and some food out and eat and study. And, you know, it's the best way to get through it. But my friends are like, what the heck you have in that bag? I'm like, well, that's lunch. They're like, are you kidding me? Because their families probably weren't Italian and they didn't, you know, force feed their kids. But it was great because I had a ton of food and I had energy all day and all afternoon. Oh. But yeah.
That's the life.
It's got to be the healthy stuff.
When I was in Syracuse, my mom would send me like a care package every once in a while, and it'd be like Parmesan brick, fresh prosciutto, all this stuff, and my roommates are trying. I'm like, get away from me. This is mine.
Like, what is that? Yeah, friends that I had at school that were from the Midwest and from different backgrounds, they just had no idea. They're like, wow. But it was wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Just people are just commenting. No, not many questions involved, but I grew up thinking a slice of bologna with was a major protein source.
Well, in kind of a way it is.
Not as
protein,
bad.
You know.
Could be worse.
Not necessarily the best for you. A lot of people today, I talk to all my patients about this, we have them just do a protein powder in the morning, like a shake. And some people take a scoop of that protein, put it in their coffee, mix it around, and drink that because you're getting the 21 grams of protein and vitamins, you know, from that drink. You don't have to have a big, heavy breakfast. That's been another lie that's been perpetrated for so many years. You don't need to have the pancakes and the waffles and the buns and whatever else people are having for breakfast.
Someone wants to know if you remember the posters in the cafeteria being secretly just cereal ads.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
That's past my time.
That's a throwback. Wow, yeah. Because it was just supporting them giving you whatever they wanted to give. Yeah, and I remember the cafeterias, they would have the little square boxes of cereal, and they had little, and you could run your thumb along it, little areas to pop open the cereal box and open the wax paper, pour milk in there, you could eat the cereal right out of the box.
I remember those.
You know? There was a lot of stuff they had back then. And maybe they didn't realize they were doing something that wasn't great, but they didn't realize because research came out, years and years later. But now we can see why certain areas have the highest of the different diseases because of just eating stuff that you shouldn't be eating.
Pizza, chocolate milk, and a brownie daily. I
Yep.
remember that. We got a question here. This is a little change of pace, but do you do NAD IV in your office?
We do the NAD. The IV, I think, is more expensive than it needs to be. The problem with the IV is that it's only going to be there for a few days, and then its effect is gone. I'd rather people use the NAD sub-Q in their belly or their leg every other day or every day for 3 months to maintain and continue to have that progressive benefit. So although the IV is this, super cool, trendy thing, how many people can afford to do an IV every week? In the city, they're charging $1,200 to $1,800 for it, which makes no sense to me. I'd rather have a bottle of the NAD that ends up being about $600 but lasts for 3 months, 3.5 months. So that just makes more sense, and people get progressive benefit every day instead of 3 or 4 days and then nothing. It's all about the continuation of creating a result, not just a quick hit.
Got it. Would you recommend stem cell therapy for someone who has successfully completed chemo for Hodgkin lymphoma, like as a post-care?
So there are some doctors and hospitals that will use stem cells in a bone marrow transplant for some of those cancers, and they do that right at the time. Typically, for those patients that we see that have had cancer in the past, if they're 5 years out, we can do the stem cell therapy because that can repopulate a lot of the different components of your body. But I'm not an oncologist, so I can't do the treatment while they're, being treated for cancer, but some oncologists will do that. So
Right.
typically, yeah, we can do that. Just has to be 5 years out.
Yeah, they said successfully completed, so I guess they're saying
Yeah.
post. All right.
And as we talk about STEM, there are a lot of videos on the website. We've mentioned before that we do it for Alzheimer's, arthritis of any of the joints, COPD, diabetes, erectile dysfunction, frailty syndrome, where people are tired and achy and they just can't function terribly well, heart disease, kidney disease and kidney failure, heart failure, liver decline and failure, MS, Parkinson's, stroke, pulmonary fibrosis, a wide range of different things, all created when I joined a clinical trial back, many years ago, 14 or 15 years ago, something like that. And now, if you look at clinicaltrial.gov, there are 10,000 clinical trials on stem cell therapy. 10,000. So this is not something that, maybe, or something that researchers aren't interested in. I don't think there's 10,000 clinical trials on much else. You wouldn't have 10,000 trials on a drug, one drug. You wouldn't have 10,000 studies on a procedure, a surgical procedure. But it works extremely well. But again, that's why the people who are in the status quo may not like it, because it minimizes their ability to do what they do.
Ooh, someone wants to know if you're still going to the Lyme conferences.
Yep, going to the Lyme Conference. The next one's in October, and I'm pretty sure it's in San Antonio.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
Which makes me happy. It's a fun town. And my uncle lives there. So I'll go hang out with my uncle. It's really, the research is great. And for people who, it's hard to describe. No matter what field you're in or what job you're in, there's invariably something that is research or updates or things that are exciting. And certainly in the medical realm, certainly in infectious disease, because there are new bugs and new problems and new medications coming up all the time. For me, it's great to go and listen to super brilliant doctors describe things that they've learned and been through and figured out, and then I adapt those, into my patient population. The best lab to use for Lyme is IGeneX in California. They break down the different types of Lyme. They look at other organisms, the cofactors, and I think they're doing a better test than what the regular labs do, because they're looking at more of the bands, BANDS, specific for Lyme. So, and again, the doctors who do these lectures and are part of this big organization, ILADS, ILADS, International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society, are great. They've been around for a long time, and they give you the benefit of their experience. It's terrific. So that'll be fun. Quick jump down to San Antonio.
Love it. No disrespect to Philly, of course.
No, Philly's nice. No, it's nice. To go there for a day or two and go to a lecture is cool. I just don't have time to run around and do anything else. I wanted to go see Liberty Bell and stuff I saw years ago in, I guess, elementary school or something, but there wasn't any time. And I didn't know anybody in Philly. At least San Antonio, I know my Uncle Gene.
There we go.
So I'll call him up in advance. I should get the tickets the next couple of weeks to get it all set up, but it'll be fun.
Love it. This is a follow-up from the NAD question.
Mm-hmm.
You may have answered this, but let me know. How long does the stem cell therapy last? How often do you have to get it?
So stem cell therapy, as you do it depending upon the severity of an area, I think stems will continue to divide over the course of years, because there's evidence of that. We've seen with patients that are diabetic, and in 2 to 4 or 5 months, we've seen them become non-diabetic, where their sugars kept dropping. We backed down on their meds. Their C-peptide comes up. Insulin production comes up because the stem cells are becoming pancreas cells and living in the pancreas. So your pancreas is getting younger. And those people have not come back to do stem, and some of them are 10 years out. So there are people who have stroke, and those individuals sometimes within a couple of weeks to a month or so start to see better balance, better movement, etc., like the videos we've seen before here on my website and on the previous podcasts. But some of those people a year later are still doing great. A few of them have come back to do a second treatment because they got 60, 70, 80% benefit. They want to do it again. And there's no reason why you couldn't. It's only your cells creating repair in your body. So we know that there's longevity with stem. And when you do an IV, I tell people that you have to look at everything from your hair down to your toes, because the stem through the IV can get anywhere. Interestingly enough, we did stem for my mom a couple of months ago, and the hair on the side and the back of her head is all black.
Crazy.
And she's 95. I'll have to get a picture of her and show people. I mean, it looks a little funny, but she's got black all the way around the back, and it's working its way up. So she's got salt and pepper on the front. But you would never expect that from anything, certainly not a medication. So I think they could last for years, and I don't think we've ever had to inject a joint a second time because they do well with the joints. How soon do they start working? Some people can see results within days. Other people, we tell you got to give it at least 3, 4, 5, 6 months. If you have heart failure, it's going to take longer because it takes more time for those cells to become new heart cells to create that result. If we shave our heads, we're not going to have a full head of hair the next day. And that's how cells grow. So that's something that happens over time.
Wild. It's still getting blacker?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I saw her the other day. And it's funny, but it's good. She's doing incredibly well, thank God. Incredibly well. She's invincible, as I say.
She's incredible. The chat wants her on the show.
We may have to do that. We either bring her here or do it remote from home. I tease her about not cooking enough.
I love it.
the latest funny little thing I did, because I tease my mom all the time. I went to a local supermarket, beautiful little supermarket, Christina's Epicure, over in East Norwich, near Oyster Bay. And I'll buy vegetables and different things for her and fruits and this and that. And she likes lamb chops, so I'll buy a bunch of food. So I did that, but the other day I said, oh my gosh, I said, I took the wrong bag. I said, I didn't buy this stuff. And I was talking about one of those little white bags that had food in it. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I didn't buy this. Look, this is crazy. So inside the bag, I took out artichoke hearts because I'm always trying to get her to make artichoke pie.
I knew it was going to end with pie.
She makes a deep dish apple pie crust with lots of mozzarella, artichoke hearts, which are delicious, and maybe some garlic, and I'm not sure of the rest of the seasonings, but I made her think that I didn't buy the artichoke hearts. I bought 6 containers of it, and then she just made artichoke pie yesterday, so.
That is incredible.
It was good. A little tease, but it was good.
I should have said something. I knew it was going to end in artichokes.
Yep.
I don't know how.
Yeah, she and her sisters were great cooks, and they would make some stuff that was just legendary. But the artichoke pie is probably one of the best.
Chad is relaxing.
Yep, it's winding down a little bit. Well, that's good.
Great show, though.
A lot of good stuff. We'll do another interview, or rather a video on Friday's show. And Saturday we'll be back with our big show, the really big show.
Really, really big.
With our Rumble fans, LFA. Trying to think of what else we could talk about. I'll just get on the computer and find some more stuff tomorrow, and we'll set it up on Friday. Get here early so we can
chat it up,
jazz around, and figure out which is a good video we can pop in and talk about. But certainly give us a call at the office, 516-794-0404. The website's drcalapai.com. Email us there, and we'd love to take your email and typically call you back, because it's easier to do that because it takes a long time to type back, especially if you have a lot of questions. But telehealth visits are available. Been doing that a lot. The RPM mechanism is working extremely well. And today I'll give an update on our meeting tonight, because I'd like to be able to merge the mechanism with a larger company. We're getting so many companies and doctors interested in this that I have to create a mechanism so that I may hire a company that just does telehealth, where nurse pracs, PAs, or doctors do the calls, and then we get them into the program, and then we're going to have to hire a whole bunch of people to bring the devices to people to get them to learn how to use them. So we're in the midst of that. But we already have probably 75 to 100 people from my practice that we've set up, including my mom. So it's going super, super well. The other cool thing to talk about are the vitamin packs. So to make vitamin taking very easy, we do your consult, take your history, examine you. Some people do it over the phone. We get blood work done. The lab can go to your home, get the blood work back, review it, and then I put together recommendations for vitamins specific to your blood test, your condition, or your concerns. And then within a month after doing that, and these are packs. It's a little pack in the morning, a little pack in the evening, and I'll have multivitamin, CoQ10, probiotics. For some people, put in DHEA. Other people, we may put in methylene blue. So there are different things we can put into the packs. And within a month of being on them, we'll recheck your blood to prove that your D levels are perfect. All your B levels are perfect, and homocysteine's dropped, and C-reactive proteins dropped. So it's the perfect way to take vitamins. There's nothing as good as this, because it's all done based upon your body's need and your body's function. So for people who don't live nearby, we can do the telehealth visit, get the blood work done, and just get your vitamins set up, give you some good guidance. Good stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the program today. God bless you all. If this is a first time that you're watching it, look at all the other videos. We have a lot of great information on there. Right, Frankie?
There we go. Love that.
Awesome.
Plug. Selfless plug. We love that.
Sounds good. Enjoy. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon.